Welcome to the Walkie-Talkies by Michelle Baharier. Part 10, an interview with Sue Elsegood about how disabled people broke the law to make the law.
Hi, my name's Sue Elsegood. I'm a white woman sitting in a powered wheelchair. I've got shoulder length light brown hair, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt with the words Dan Freedom Now, and a red hoodie and blue joggers, and I'm sitting in my back garden chatting with you today. I wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. So I've been disabled all my life, but as I have a progressive impairment, it meant that as a child I was able to be ambulant and more mobile than I am today. So when I was much younger, I was able to get on a bus, but it was very, very difficult for me to actually to get up steps. And then later on, as I became a young teenager, I was a wheelchair user, and so by that time I found that I was completely unable to use buses or most public transport. And at that time, because it was before I'd really met other disabled people within the disabled people's movement, I was exposed to the medical model of disability, and so I learned to believe that it was my fault that I couldn't get on a bus. It was my fault that I couldn't get up the steps, so that's why I was excluded from the transport system. And it wasn't until I got to know some like-minded disabled people who were disability rights activists in the campaign for accessible transport that I really started to change my own mindset and understand the social model of disability. So that was a real game changer, to be honest. So I met a few people who were friends of mine, Kathleen Arignello and Veronica Pakenham and Kate Brown, who lived locally to me, and they invited me to join them on an action. They said, "Oh, why don't you join us and come and hijack a bus?" And I was very curious. I thought, this doesn't sound very legal. What do they mean? So I went on an action it was in Oxford Street in central London, and there was a group of us who could block the road and stop the bus, double-decker Routemaster bus, and basically we were demanding that those buses be made accessible by installing ramps and lifts on the bus, which at that time didn't exist at all. And so a number of us got arrested, and we were arrested and removed from the road. We chained ourselves together, but it was really empowering, because for the first time I understood that I was a member of the public and I had a right to be on public transport, whereas before I felt so marginalised that I felt it was my fault. And then all of a sudden I realised, no, this isn't right. I am a member of the public. Other disabled people are members of the public. And we all have a right to be mobile and to participate fully in society and to be integrated into everything that life offers and not to be excluded. So I then felt very passionate about activism because I could see that it was actually very much doable we had the engineering skills to put a ramp and a lift on a bus. We'd already seen people fly to the moon, so why could we not place a lift or a ramp on a bus? One of the things that really struck me in our campaign is that we're one of the last civil rights movements, the movement for rights of disabled people, because, for example, around transport, we were still segregated in the 1990s. There are still portions of our community that had been segregated for many, many more years than should ever have been the case. And so I did take a lot of inspiration from other civil rights movements and their achievements and their pride, and I think it was really important to me. So whilst doing the protest, we had to break the law to make the law, as it were. So I have been involved in many, many actions over the years. They were non-violent civil disobedience actions, where we mostly chained ourselves to the buses or handcuffed ourselves to the buses. And it was to raise public awareness and the awareness of politicians that that was the only way we could catch a bus, was by chaining ourselves to the bus. And so we would get arrested because we'd blocked the highway, we'd blocked the roads. And altogether I was arrested on 8 occasions. And I remember on the first occasion I was arrested in central London with CAT, Campaign for Accessible Transport. We were arrested, but many of us couldn't get in the police vans because they weren't accessible. And I remember the police actually coming into my van that I got adapted and forcing us to drive to the police station because they couldn't get us there any other way. So it just highlighted the inaccessibility of both the police vehicles, the police stations. And later, when it came to being called to court, the court case was completely dropped, apparently because it wasn't in the public interest to prosecute us. But in fact, the Horseferry Magistrates Court, where we were due to appear, did not have any wheelchair access. So to save the humiliation of the judicial system, they had dropped the case. So it happened that although I was arrested many times, I was only let off with a warning. I never had to, I was never charged. I was never charged purely because the system was inaccessible, and it made me quite cross at times because even in that way I didn't feel I was being treated equally. But you know, there we are. We carried on protesting until we got the change that we desired, and I'm so happy that now I can go out and see disabled people at the bus stop queuing for a bus as if it's always been like that. And a lot of people in the younger generations don't realise that it's not always been that way, and now people take it for granted. And in a way so they should, but it only came with a fight. It wouldn't have happened if we hadn't fought for that change. There were no plans to make the public transport accessible, so I think it was down to disabled people fighting for our own rights, speaking up for ourselves, that this occurred. I can't tell you how excited and proud I was the first time I did get on the bus locally. It was I just felt so exhilarating. It just seemed such an ordinary thing to do. But funnily enough, it was also such a strange thing, because I hadn't been on a bus for all those years. I felt I didn't know what to do. What do you do? How do you pay to be on the bus? What do you do? Where do you sit? It was a bit of an alien experience, but I was just beside myself with happiness, the freedom that I felt, because literally I don't think people that aren't in a similar situation can quite imagine just how small your world becomes when you can't use public transport. It was literally, I couldn't go further than my wheelchair would take me, because I couldn't I couldn't be transferred into anybody's car. There was nowhere to put the wheelchair, which doesn't fold because it's a power chair. There was no taxis I could use. There was no way, of getting out and about until those buses were made accessible for a lot of people. And I knew it was a game changer, and that it was going to make a huge difference to so many people's lives.
The Walkie-Talkies project by Michelle Baharier is supported by Arts Council England National Lottery funding. Michelle Baharier wishes to thank Alex Zidane, Jennifer Fletcher, Kathy Waller, Disability Arts Online, and many others for their support to make the Walkie-Talkies.